Over the last decade, product-led growth, or PLG, has proven to be incredibly effective at generating low-cost leads. This bottoms-up model gets multiple prospects in the buyer organization engaged and championing the offering without necessarily having to talk to sales. PLG has therefore lowered acquisition costs and paved a path for SaaS businesses to increase their LTV, or lifetime value. However, for most businesses, PLG alone isn't enough for long-term success. Hitting long-term AR and MR milestones requires having the right teams in place, be it sales, marketing, customer success, etc. They also need consistent user activation instead of small pockets of adoption, a proven customer journey, especially for prospects looking for enterprise caliber offerings, and a nuanced monitoring system to predict churn or downgrades. In other words, the revenue org needs a system that does this well. So how do we put this together? Our guest can speak from experience of running several startups, including his current venture, as to how he's been able to overcome some of these issues despite playing in a very competitive space. Hello, and welcome to the Predictable B2B Success podcast, brought to you by Sproutwith.com. I'm Vinay Koshi, and our guest today is Carl Peel. Carl, you are something of an entrepreneur from a young age. I believe you kicked things off by promoting nightclub events in Paris, studied engineering at King's College in London, and established an entrepreneurial society there. At university, you started Monte Napoleone, a brand specialized in made-to-measure products of crocodile and alligator, which you later sold to your partner. And then founded Student Box and co-founded Drinkies, a promotional bottling company. You seemed Box wasn't quite so much of a hit, and after exiting successfully from Drinkies, I believe you co-founded Lost in London, ticket distribution platform for international students. Now, Lost in London organized events, tours, and sold attractions, tickets to 80% of the language schools in London. Now, more recently, you resigned as director of Lost in London, sold your shares to concentrate on your latest venture, which is Ticketing Hub. Now, perhaps some people would be interested in the fact that you've also appeared on The Last Millionaire, which is a VC show, and you actually managed to sell two businesses in just 5 days when in Thailand along with other entrepreneurs. I'm curious, Carl, given your variety of experiences and perhaps more importantly, your experiences with Lost in London, was there a particular event, incident that triggered this journey to creating Ticketing Hub?
Yes, there was a series of events. I think everything happens for a reason. Wow, I could start when I was very young, but no, let's take it to somewhere that makes sense. So I obviously started Student Box, which was Facebook with a purpose when Facebook didn't exist. But I've obviously failed, and I tried to do too many things, and I should have just focused on one. So I learned my lesson. And when that failed, I learned a lot about the international student market, or the student market in general. And I realized that international students in London weren't really provided with an infrastructure to have fun and enjoy their time. So we went to pitch to school directors and tell them, as an international, I want to meet people, I want to go out, I want to have fun. And if I don't have that kind of social life, I'm not going to enjoy my life and your school. And therefore, when I'm going to go back to my country, I'm going to say, oh, this school was really bad. Whereas if you met a lot of cool friends, you went out, you discovered a new city, you'd have a blast and you'd be like, wow, this school was amazing. This whole trip was amazing. I recommend you to do it. That started our pitch to language schools, and the directors were very pleased with it because nobody was really handling it. And it was a way for them to make money, to service their clients or their students. And it provided us a new market and an opportunity. So we grew very quickly, and we were selling 15 to 25,000 tickets a week. That's almost a festival every week. We went to Merlin Entertainment. They weren't giving out like contracts or reseller contracts. And I remember cold calling every day their office and calling every time. No. And one day this woman tells me, listen, you got the wrong number for this guy. You need to call this number. And I was like, bingo, this is the jackpot. I hit the head office. I call this guy, I get his secretary. I lie. And I'm like, yes, my friend gave me his number because he can help me, etc. And she was like, listen, he's too busy for this, but I'll give you the boss of the person that you need to speak to and get your deal. So I got my deal for Merlin Entertainment and HRP and all this. And we were selling all these tickets to the language schools, but it was inefficient. We were printing the tickets in our office. We were giving them to the schools, and the schools never had the right amount of tickets. So that's when I was like, wow, we need to digitalize this. And if we can scale to other places. So I went to a ticketing company, I'm not going to name them, and we paid $20,000 up front. And we had a minimum fee per ticket with a 200,000 ticket minimum, which was easy
Hmm.
for us. And none of our schools wanted to use it. They
Oh,
were like, this is too complicated, it's not working, etc. And I remember we went back to our physical tickets and this American company wanted to sue us. So I'm like, you want to what? Like your software is so complicated, nobody wants to use it. And now you want to sue us for this 200,000 ticket. I was like, thanks for letting me know. I'm going to transfer the only asset we have, which was the name lost in London. And then all the relation we have is going to stay there. So you're just going to sue an empty shell and it's going to be David and Goliath. So they never sued us. And that's when I realized, okay, let's build our own software. So I found that this student, I was advising the CEO of the company that he was working for before, and it didn't go anywhere. And I contacted him. I was like, I need help. Could you build this? And he did. So he built this software that enabled the schools to just print their own tickets. We bought a company or a franchise of a company called Mini Cards that had access to 200 hotels. And we started selling those tickets in 1 to 3 star hotels. And it went really well for us until we got the bill from the attractions we used to work with, including Merlin. And we realized there were a lot of tickets that we hadn't sold that were on the manifest. And so we realized that we didn't have QR codes and that everyone was just photocopying our tickets because they're students. And that's when I realized, wow, there's no connection between supplier and distribution and the travel industry. And this is a big problem to tackle. And that's how Ticketing Hub came about.
brilliant. And quite the story. I'd love to dive into it into a bit more detail, but I'm also curious as to what you would say would be your personal area of strength given your journey to date.
People.
How
I'm a
so?
people person. I think at the beginning of Ticketing Hub, I was working with the owner of City Sightseeing, and he said, I see myself in you. And the head of City Sightseeing, like his right hand man, was like, I love you, bro. And I think creating a relationship with people and being able to understand what they need and how to service that is really important.
Hmm.
I can give you another example where our software completely blew up. All of my clients, nobody can sell tickets. It was a 24-hour, like not 24 hours, I'm exaggerating, but it was at the beginning. And our software just blew up because we signed up a Santa's Grotto and we never expected them to get 10,000 people trying to buy tickets for a Santa's Grotto. And so the whole system goes down. I'm just in panic. All my clients are calling me one after the other. My team is under a lot of pressure. I don't put any pressure on my team and I just liaise with our customers. And the one customer, when we sorted everything else, said, listen, people are going to go to the press with this. We're going to have so many problems. We're going to have to mention your name. And I said, no problem. And I took that and I just continued speaking to our customer. And by the end of it, he signed up for the next year. He never mentioned our name in the press. And my team called me up and said, you never called me once. I was like, there was no point. I know you were dealing with it. What's the point in putting more pressure on you? So my team was happy. My customer was happy. And at the end, we didn't lose a customer, even though our whole system went down.
What would you say that area of strength is something that businesses don't know but should?
Sorry, say that again.
What would you say in that area of strength is something that businesses should know but don't?
I think each business has its own merits and everyone needs different skill sets for what they do. I think my skill sets can morph into a lot of different directions. But again, if you're a pilot, you need to know how to pilot a plane. And there's certain things you
Okay.
need to
Yeah.
know and you need to play to your strength. My strength has always been people
Okay.
and understanding problems and thinking a bit differently than others.
Brilliant. Now, you talked about creating ticketing hub, but based off a lot of relationships and experiences that you had. Is that what continues to drive traffic to the site to get people signed up? Because it's, as I understand it, this is very much a two-sided marketplace. You've got people who want to sell tickets to attractions, and you've got ordinary folk, or the customers, if you will, en masse, who would use your platform to purchase tickets off of these specific attractions and vendors. Would that be correct?
Yeah, correct. So we don't handle the end consumer. We only handle our customers, and then our customers will handle the end consumer. I think, yeah, to start, you build relations, but a lot of the relations that I have now have been created with Ticketing Hub. So yes, when I started, I was working with all the pub crawls because they work with Lost in London. And I showed them our software. They were happy with it and started using it because we had a relationship. I think now a lot of people are coming because they see the Pyramids of Egypt using us, or Secret Food Tours, the biggest food tour in the world, or the biggest VR company in the world. And they're like, oh, cool. What software are they using? I want to know. And that's how
Right.
we're word of mouth. Recently, I had a call with someone and they said, wow, I was reading reviews and we're not just a number in your company. Everyone's dealing with you. They have your number. If something goes wrong, I'm around. It's not just like this huge corporation. So I think it's the relation you have with your customers. It's educating them on what they can do. When we do demos with customers, we explain to them what every feature does and how it can improve either their revenue or the time they save or increase their reviews because it's really important for them. And I think taking the time to broaden the view of our customers or our future customers is really important.
Mhm. What about SEO? Has that helped at all with the idea of educating people beyond them perhaps coming across your product because the competitors using it or by chance, etc.?
Yeah, of course. I almost lost the business during the pandemic and I needed to find a way. And I had a budget. We'd never done any sales or anything like that at the beginning. And I had a budget to go to an agency, but that budget was getting eaten by my developers that we weren't getting any more revenue in. I'd started learning SEO and I spent my days and night reading, watching videos, looking at how it works. And yeah, SEO has been a very big part of getting in front of consumers or customers for us.
Okay, take us back to the pandemic. Obviously, a lot of attractions and things were shut down. How did you manage to get by and get support a lot of your clients?
We didn't get any support. We got no support. We have this business model where we refund our customers when they refund their customers. So when I had money saved in the bank because we're bootstrapped and I need to keep this buffer, I was like, oh, we'll be fine. And then I just see money go down because we're refunding our customers. And I'm like, wow. So it was a really difficult period. It was a very lonely period. Yeah, fight or die. It was that really weird situation. And I was like, okay, I can't call people in the middle of the pandemic when they're losing their business to tell them, hey, have you thought about switching software? It's not going to help them. Yeah, I think where we got lucky is that a lot of big attractions had to change the way they were selling tickets. A lot of people had to move online. A lot of people that had like opening hours had to move into time slots, and the systems that they were using weren't really adapted for that. And we signed one of the biggest zoos in the UK. And, I didn't even negotiate. They said, this is what we can pay. I was like, I'll take it. First time in my life I didn't negotiate. And they really took us through the pandemic and helped us through this kind of difficult time. A little bit of luck, a lot of hard work. The more I practice, the luckier I get.
Certainly. Now, you've come up with a solution that obviously helps a lot of your clients, but you're not the only solution in this space. There are a few solutions that cater to the online market as well. How have you managed to compete despite the competition that probably had a bit of a head start over the years, over Ticketing Hub as well?
It's a good question. Generally, we've tried to make things simple for our customers to use. So it's really like my motto is simple enough for any operator to use, but powerful enough to scale enterprise. So the first part of it is really making it simple so that they know how to operate the system without having the need of any assistance. Then we've tried to innovate. We were up for Innovation Award in the UK for a very simple thing, but a thing that really saves our customers. So we do all of the training courses for the US military. And so they need to buy tickets. We don't even know the location where they're going. But the general one day called me and said, listen, Carl, we're having a problem. A lot of people are putting the wrong email address. Would it be possible to have double email verification? I was like, what? I was born in the 80s. That seems a solution from the 80s. And so we tried to come up with a solution that was innovative, and it was. And I wish that HubSpot and all of these other tools that I use actually implemented something like this. So we basically ping the domain of the customer to make sure that the email is valid. So if you try to book a ticket on one of our customers' websites using Ticketing Hub, you wouldn't go to the next step if you have the wrong email address. And for people doing volume and that don't really want the time of or speak to customers and what's your last name, and the beginning of the conversation is like, how do you pronounce your last name? So imagine it's exactly that situation. Pil, oh, how do you spell that? Feel, till, bill. And I get it's really hard to get that. So that takes you a lot of time. And so what we're trying to do is find those little problems that our customers are having and solve them one by one. During the pandemic, we were the first ones to launch a magic link, I call it, that enables our customer to change their booking without having to contact them. And that saves them time, allows them to, again, make more money and focus on what they like to do, is operate a business. They're not tech people. They don't know how to build websites. They don't know anything about SEO. And we're here to help them as much as we can so that they can continue doing what they like.
With this idea of keeping things simple and providing a degree of innovation, obviously gaining visibility is important. Now, we've talked about people discovering perhaps competitors using your platform to enable ticketing sales. In terms of people who are perhaps trying to be visible in the search engines, how have you been able to make a bit of a difference? Because a lot of people try their hand at SEO. Not everyone necessarily succeeds. So what would you say have been the key drivers of your SEO strategy?
So I think the first thing to do is understand SEO to be able to tell people what to do. So I think if the pandemic wouldn't have happened, I would have gone to an agency and I could have flipped a coin. It could have worked or not worked and not really know.
Yeah.
And so I learned what it is, what a long tail keyword is. And instead of going for the keywords that everyone was going for, like tour booking software, I went for all the long tail keywords. I have 138 industry pages on my website, software, zoo reservation software, et cetera, et cetera. And so those were keywords that don't even come up in SEMrush or Ahrefs. You don't even see them, but there's still volume there. And it's intent volume, which is the one you want because that's the one that's going to convert. I had a friend or consultant friend, became a friend, Eric Ingrand. And so he was guiding me through the maze of SEO because you need someone that knows what they're talking about. But then I took it a step further by understanding the keyword density, the research you had to do on all of the pages. And I remember when I started doing it, I had this zoo reservation page and we didn't have 138 industry pages. We had a few. I was like, how can I rank this one? And what I gathered from my research was that you needed to have the word membership a certain amount of time because Google works with the cluster from your website, but also the cluster from your page. So I built the whole cluster from the website. And then I was trying to build this cluster page and this cluster on the page. And so I wrote membership. We know you want membership. We will be building membership. Membership is coming. And so I did that and we landed number one of Google for zoo reservation software. So that was a really cool hack that I was able to set and really worked for us. And then there's other ones, like I have all my competitors on my website and rank very well for alternative to my competitors. And now once I started learning what needed to be done, I was able to train people to do that. So I then went on Facebook, out of all places, and went to all these Filipino content writers and support and all this. And I hired probably 5 people and fired them like literally 3 days later. And then I found this incredible woman who started working for me. And she's working from Philippines. She's super well paid for Philippines, but compared to a UK salary is not the same. And then she hired someone else. And so now I have 2 content writers trained on what I learned and writing all my content and doing also our Instagram now. It started off really badly. And then I just told them, look, this is how we do it on Figma. Look at this, look at that. And if you go and check our Instagram and you see these weird things, and then it actually gets better.
Brilliant. So if I understand this correctly, at least from an SEO point of view, you're producing content to address some of the key long tail keywords, as you mentioned, but you also figured out a way to determine what actually allows for your page or a content piece to actually rank potentially higher up in the SERPs. I was curious, was that something you happened to discover by accident or was there more method to the madness, so to speak?
A lot of trial and error, a lot of videos, a lot of understanding. And there's this one guy who showed that you could rank your page without a header, without a format, without anything, as long as you had the right cluster of content for your website. So
Mm,
when I figured that out, I was like, okay, cool. I'll write all about all the online travel agents on the market, even if I'm not connected to them. And I'll say coming soon. And so all of those little things are things that like Google picked up. I rebuilt my website 3 times from the ground up because my lighthouse wasn't sufficient for me, like to actually rank. So yeah, there's a lot of trial and error. You can't get everything right the first
mhm.
time. And it's all about putting sweat into it. But once you understand, and like the first time I got a page at the top of Google, I was like, "Yes, I got there." And then once I understood how that worked, I was able to train people. And I've helped from some of my friends. I've been offered jobs for SEO. I've been consulting on SEO. It's again, it's a science that you need to learn. Once you know it, it's easier.
Mm. Okay. With the content, you're essentially creating templates. Is that correct? Or some sort of brief for your writers to put together?
Yeah, so we basically have all those industry pages, and that was their first task. And it was a template in the sense that our website is Webflow and the page is templated, but we didn't necessarily have a template for each page. And actually finding the tags for each page having the exact same thing and the exact same content 138 times. We used AI. We were the first ones using Jasper. We were using the first ones using Surfer. I know the founders, again, it was like finding the tools that would really help you to generate that content in an efficient way.
Mhm. So you put together this content. Obviously, the product itself allows for a degree of discoverability. You make anyone who wants to try out your software needs to register for a demo. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we're a hybrid between sales and product led. There's the first demo where we set up the client and explain to them all of the functionalities that we have. And then we let them with their account and they can decide to use it or not because we're on a commission basis. So it's this like in between sales and product, even though I want to shift towards product, but we have so many features and so much content. And depending on whether you're a zoo or a food tour or a walking tour, your settings are going to be different. So that's actually my priority for this year is making it into a platform that nobody needs to even learn.
Okay. That'll be amazing in itself. So, in order to give people a very personalized experience, which you're currently doing, of course, with demos. Given this product-led approach, what do you see as being key drivers of continuing to fill the demand? Because this is a platform that is not just being used in the UK or in Europe; it's huge worldwide. If I understand, that's correct.
Correct. The requirements like keep coming. People always want new things
Mhm.
and this new shiny object, I would say. It's really, for me, it's important. And I see some VCs that actually follow this rule as well, that everybody in the team needs to understand the problems that the customers are having. So speaking to them, understanding what the pitfalls are, where they're spending most of their time. And it's crazy because some of our customers, we release a feature and they're like, oh, I've been dreaming of this. And I was like, why didn't you call me and tell me? Well, if only you just told me you wanted this, I would have built this and probably earlier rather than later. So I think constant communication with customers and understanding where they're spending most of their time and what we can improve. So the whole product led, I think the product led CRMs are something that I've really like Journey and Calixa and things like that. I think are the future of even customer onboarding, understanding what your customers
Mhm.
need, etc. HubSpot and CRMs like that are great, but people don't want demos anymore. Like I see it with my website all the time. They go on the chatbot, they're like, "Oh, could we just have an account? Like we don't want to go into this demo. We just want to play around with it ourselves and see if it works for us." And I get that because I'm the same. If I see on a website, oh, log in
Yeah.
for a demo, I'll be like, oh, these guys are gonna, like, something's wrong. There must be expensive. There's something there. So yeah, I think like becoming product led is where the consumer wants to be. They want to understand how it works. They want to understand for themselves. They don't want to be handheld. But sometimes being handheld in an industry like ours, when the person's not technical, is really important. We have a feature that will increase our customers' review by 200%. And if they don't know about it, if no one explains to you that no one opens emails, but sending an SMS will increase your reviews, they'll never figure that out.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. I'm curious, within the organization, do you actually get your team to, regardless of whether they're a developer or not, to actually speak to customers or address their
Yeah,
queries, etc.?
correct.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it gets quite of dangerous sometimes because then the customer wants to email like my team directly, and you have to put a stop at that. You're like, no, you jumped on the call to understand what your problem was, and we're going to try to solve it. But you're not there to tell my team what to do. It comes to me, and then I'll tell them whether I think it's a priority for us or not. So yeah, I think it's important for them to understand what they're building and why they're building it. A simple example is that email validator. I had to have a 2-hour conversation with my CTO because he was like, why are we paying for this?
Mm.
I was like, what do you mean? It's 0.01 cents. Like, what is this a problem? And he was like, why are we paying for it? Why don't we? I was like, because it's part of our service. It's part about what we do. We're here to help customers. We're here to give them the best product possible. And if we have to lose 0.01 per email validation, big deal. And that's something that for enterprise customers is a huge saving of time.
Absolutely. So you're very much a customer focused organization. Beyond the need to speak to customers, what else are you doing to really keep them at the fore of your thinking and product development?
Wow, what am I doing? I'm speaking to customers every day. I'm speaking to my designer. This whole weekend, I just sat behind my computer while my designer was building our new calendar and just telling him, no, this doesn't work. You need to think about this. Oh, like this functionality. Because all the business logic is in my head. And as much as my CTO might have it, other team members don't. So I try to put on paper. I have a massive Excel with this industry needs this, that industry needs that, and try to focus on what they need. I always love like speaking to customers, asking them, what takes you the most amount of time? What would be your best solution or where are you losing the most amount of time? Those are my favorite questions because sometimes it's something we haven't really thought about and we can fix this in 2 seconds. That email validation wasn't like a huge task. It was probably a few hours to implement. And yet the benefit that our customers are having is huge. So often we think, wow, what is this end goal and how are we going to get there? And we're all striving for this end goal. But sometimes there's these little things that will change everything. And before having a designer in house, we had an interface and my designer like argued with me so many times. And I was like, why'd you change this? No, I promise you, this is so much more digestible for customers. And I was like, nah, come on. And so we were arguing and I was like, you know what, let's give it a try. And then everyone was like, this is so much simpler. And it's not nothing crazy, no big design change, nothing, just putting everything in a line. And so it's just digestible to the eye. So yeah, I think these small changes and constantly speaking to customers, asking them what they think about them is really key to success.
Do you actually invite customers into the design process at some stage in order to get feedback and some further input?
Yeah, even leads. So I speak to leads and I'm like, oh, this is
Right.
where we're trying to go. This is our objective. What do you think? So
Right.
it's always, yeah, like bringing them in, they feel part of what you're building. They like being part of innovation. They're like, oh, we've chosen you. You might be the smallest company, but we see where you're going. And we like that. And a lot of the big companies now, they build critical mass. They can change things. They have huge organization level and multi-authorization and things like that. So they can't move as fast. And we've managed to sign some very large customers just probably because how candid I am, and also because we're able to make changes. And I got a customer, I went to see them and I said, you're not going to find the solution you want. So you can try. I'll give you a list of customers. Why are you giving me a list of your competitors? I was like, go speak to them, go see what they're offering you and tell me what you need and I'll build it. And they're like, what? I need to sign a contract? I'm like, no, I'll build it because I know what you need and you're going to tell me, and that's going to serve my other customers, even if you don't use it. And if you decide to use it, then great, we can work together. And that's how I get a lot of our contracts.
Mm.
It's telling them we're 80% there. All we need is that extra little push to tweak the system to your needs. And then sometimes they're big changes, sometimes they're minor changes. But again, depending on the size of the customer, we're willing to make that effort.
Is AI very much a part of the conversation within your organization and in terms of not just the product that you're producing, but also processes within the organization?
Yeah, it's something that I'm very interested in that I've been following for a very long time. I think AI is not really where I think people are emphasizing AI as an end solution that's already there. AI is not that clever. AI is really useful and
Mhm.
it could definitely help our customers. And we've talked about it internally and externally. So I also like to hire people outside of my organization just to build plugins. So I've been looking at it, but if you look at AI and you ask it 2 plus 2, it might not be able to find you the answer. And so this whole idea of generative AI, and I see so many companies, it's a lot of logic. It's a lot of click here, go there, click here, go there. And then it's disguised in this kind of AI model. So I do believe AI is going to move very fast, and it already is. I was actually hesitant whether to implement it yet, just because it could come up with a completely wrong answer if you don't have the right model to train it on. And then that could create bigger problems for our customers. Just an example of a chatbot and asking some random question and ChatGPT 3 going on its own little level. So again, I love, like, if you looked at my phone, you'd probably go crazy. I have 100,000 different apps on I have probably like 100 apps on my phone, just testing everything that comes out, testing the UIs, testing how it is. And I love testing. And I've spoken to a lot of people in the AI space, and except if you're Google, I think it's still a bit premature to get into that. It's definitely the right time to read up on it and understand which language, which model, which this. But to just jump at our size or anything like that into it, I don't think it's the right move yet.
Um, Obviously, with things like tours and concerts, etc., events, etc., they tend to be, at least in most parts of the world, tend to be a little bit seasonal, if I can put it that way. Is there something that you're doing, or is this to help address some of the fluctuations in demand with given the seasonality of certain events, or is it a conversation you just leave pretty much to the organizers?
It's not something we can help the organizers with, but it's definitely something that we see. Obviously, summer is my busiest period, and then winter is cold. I think it's more of a problem for us because we're bootstrapped.
Mhm.
So, because of the seasonality, I need to keep a certain level of cash flow in my business to pay my team in case anything goes wrong.
Mhm.
But the problem is we have a UK based business and it's 25% corporation tax. So actually you're trying to save money. And then at that moment, the tax office comes to you and says, hey, give me my cut of it. Whereas if we had investors, we can get to a zero or a negative and then still have money in the bank to cover for that. It is a problem for us. Having said that, there are businesses that run very successfully during the winter months. You can go for ice skating rings. You can go for Santa's grottos. There's still, there's other countries where it's winter in one and summer in the other. So I think, again, we have clients all around the world and we're trying to level that and get to a point where, again, we wouldn't have those cold months. But yeah, January, February, not the best months for us. December, great month. We do so many distillers, Sipsmith, Warder Edwards. So we have 15, 20 distillery tours. We're probably one of the leaders in that space. And they sell gift vouchers. Like Sipsmith, I remember. So we started with them before Diageo bought them out, and they sold their whole allocation for the whole year in gift vouchers.
Yes, yes.
Huge business.
Mhm.
So yeah, so there is fluctuation, but we try to mitigate it as much as we can, and we're doing okay at the moment. I've changed my tax year so that it's after winter, so I wouldn't have to pay those taxes. And yeah,
Apart from issuing tickets, is payment the other key issue that a lot of these providers experience as a
yes.
major obstacle, especially when it comes to the
It's
event
a huge
space?
obstacle for us as well. We have a lot of demands in countries and we can't necessarily service the customer because we're not the merchant of record and they have problems getting an acquirer or payment gateway to
Mhm.
open an account for them. So there are solutions to that, opening a company through Stripe in the US, but then you're charged 3% on US rates. So yeah, I think payments is a big issue. It's something I'm speaking constantly to payment gateways to see whether we should become the merchant of record, but that also has a huge liability on our
Mhm.
end. If anyone goes out of business or chargebacks or anything like that, just sits on us. And I think until I'm venture backed, it's not something that I would want to get into. Again, who knows? But I think I need that backing. Stripe has been incredible for us to a certain degree. We have multiple methods of payments. We support 120 different payment gateways. The thing with Stripe is that we take our fees automatically with Stripe Connect. And I think I wouldn't have been able to bootstrap if we didn't have Stripe Connect, because people never pay their invoice on time. You're always waiting.
Yeah.
It never works. You have to chase them, or you have to like threaten them to take their ticketing platform off or anything like that. Stripe has been really useful to us. And there are cases where it hasn't. And recently I've had to speak to one of the founders to get him to resolve a situation that we had with a customer of ours where they were holding $450,000 and didn't want to pay them out
So,
without giving any reason. So it's quite a lot of money. And again, I managed to get it released, and then they were holding another like 160,000, and I spoke to my account. And again, if you know the right people there, you'll be able to sort things out. And I'm super grateful to a company like Stripe.
right. So with the product-led growth, are there aspects that you find don't get talked about very much? And if so, what would be I guess, the top two that come to mind?
And for me, the top one is the product-led CRMs. It took me ages to actually get there and understand, and I was looking at all the wrong places. I've looked at every single CRM to try to figure out what we can use until I got there. And once I got there, I was like, this is what I need. I'm
Okay.
blind once we like open an account for someone, I'm blind. I don't know if they become a customer. They might be just testing a transaction. They might be, I don't know when they're logging in. I don't know what messages to send them. So I think product-led CRMs was for me like a big discovery. And it's something that we're implementing slowly because it's not something you can implement overnight, but it's something that we're working towards. And already now, like the changes, without actually having moved to a product-led CRM, I'm still with HubSpot, but just the information we're feeding into HubSpot is already pretty important for me on my day-to-day. And then, yeah, I think the second thing for product-led is probably going to be your website and how you come across. And we're actually rebuilding our website now because we tracked everything. So from my widget to the back end, we track absolutely everything. All of it is data. And we realized that actually no one's going on our product pages. So they're just like scrolling, pricing, terms and conditions, this, that, but they don't actually go and see our products. So now we're changing the website to go through what the customer is expecting. In my view, nothing is ever perfect and everything could be improved. And to really be successful, you need to continuously improve, test, see what's wrong, get it better. So yeah, that's why it's going to be the fourth time I redo my website in 3 years.
Oh, wow. Brilliant. I love your approach to talking to people and continual improvement. It certainly makes a lot of sense. Not a lot of us actually do it. Carl, yeah, is there perhaps something around product-led growth that I should have asked but haven't? If so, what would it be?
It's hard because even though I see myself as a product-led growth, we're still very sales-led. We're inbound. We've never done any advertising or cold emails or anything like that. I really like Neil Patel, and he has this theory, and it's coming true now with AI being implemented into Google. People aren't going to go onto a website to find an answer anymore. They'll find it directly on that little presentation of Google.
Yes.
So the question is, how are you going to be attracting customers now that your SEO might not work? And I think that's a very interesting topic for a conversation that might be longer than this. And we have some ideas of what we're going to be doing to actually get there. So I think, yeah. So how are you going to be able to present your product when everything is going to change?
And would that really entail focusing more on the bottom of the funnel kind of terms and building it out to really speak to your value proposition over everyone else? Or is there more to the piece?
I think there's more to the piece. I believe in bringing and giving, and that's something that people don't always do. So I give my time. I help my customers. I can talk about SEO. I can talk about their strategy. I've had customers offer me equity in their business just for the advice, and I've never taken it. But I think to be able to get anything back, you need to be able to give. And I think that's the key. It's whether you build a community and you give to your community, whether you're building new tools and you give them to your customers and they're able to use them. Being able to give things to people will get you more. And there's so many studies that were made around this. If you're a waiter and you give 2 candies to someone before you give them the bill, they'll tip you more. So I think that's the strategy that for me, and that's what product led is at the end of the day. It's test my product. And then if you like it, then sign. So I think that's like my sales cycle is more around that. It's how do I bring value? Where can I help you? And when I go to conferences, I speak to people and they're using another software. And I'm like, oh, okay. So how long does it take you to do this? And oh, have you thought about doing this? And have you thought about doing that? And have you thought? And by the end of it, they're like, wow, you've helped me so much. What'd you do? I was like, oh, we're a reservation software. Oh, really? Oh, how can I do a demo? And so again, you reverse the cycle, and it's not about you justifying yourself to other people. It's about them justifying themselves to you. If you like anything about pickup, that if you like to go and meet girls, it's not about you saying what you do and how you are and how you do it. It's about reversing it and saying, why would I speak to you? And I love that. That's one of my favorite like sales technique. When someone asks me for something that we don't do. So distillery tours, simple example. Oh, we use Shopify for our e-commerce and we're looking for a ticketing software to do everything. And I'm like, okay, cool. Go and see this company. They do it. I'm like, why would you be sending me to another company? I'm like, we don't do e-commerce. Shopify have raised millions and have an amazing product. Do you really think that like us, a bootstrap startup, will be able to compete with Shopify on what they offer? And you really think that a company that's raised 10 million will be able to compete on ticketing and on e-commerce? They won't. So we're really good at what we do. But if you don't want what we do, go to them. And already that just people are shocked. They're like, why would you be sending me to your competition?
Yes.
And so that reaction, like we are looking for customers, but we're looking for customers where we're a good fit for them, where we can really, and I tell people, I'm like, listen, this is my ex-girlfriend now, but my ex-girlfriend was always close to me. And she was like, why do you tell people that this doesn't work with your platform or this is not the best solution? I was like, they're going to find out one day or another that this particular feature is not amazing and they're not going to be happy. And then they're going to go and complain. They're going to tell people that more people complain than say positive things. So more people, like you have a problem with someone, they're going to go and tell everyone. If they're happy with it, sometimes they share it. And so for me, it's okay. Let's be upfront. Like, oh, you want this feature? This is what we can do. I don't think it's the best, but we're going to be working on it. And that for me is the best. And people like trust you because there's no surprises. And I hate it. We have a customer that left us, and not because of us. It was the Stripe situation I was talking about earlier. So she left us because we don't have a contract. And I was like, oh, big customer. I was kind of disappointed. And 3 days later, I got an email from her. It's like, can we come back? And I was like, of course you can, no problem. And it was just because like other people, like they hire salespeople that are just here to sell the software it's what happened to me at Lost in London. These guys like never gave me a test. I couldn't actually test it. It was, oh, of course we can do everything you've asked for. Of course we can. And then the moment you actually have it in your hand, you're like, where's the instructions on this? What is this thing? How do I manipulate it? And I remember when I was having problems with my co-founder, I was trying to find a partnership and I went to someone's office, huge company, and like I'm with the owner, the daughter, and I'm like, okay, can we have a demo? And they're like, no, we're waiting for our tech guy. And I was like, what do you mean you're waiting for your tech guy? You can't give me a demo of your own software? And I was like, no. And I was like, how is that even possible? And I know one of my competitors, like the biggest cost is the onboarding fee and the cost of educating their customers to using their software. And we have that for just one page. It's explaining like our definition of how you create an option or a season, and that's it. Other than that, like I can let people, if I create an account for people for their industry and I show them, they're like, oh, okay, I get it. That's it. And that's why I need to still do demos. But for them, it's actually, I need to sit you down. I need to set it up for you. I need to explain to you all these features. And for me, that's no, I'm going the other direction.
This has been fascinating, Carl. To wrap things up, if you were listening to this episode, what would you say would be your top takeaway?
If I were listening to this episode, I think do things differently. Look for the space where people aren't necessarily going, because for me, the money is in the niches. And that's what I did with my SEO strategy. It's really go for the niches and solve the problems that people are looking to solve or need solving.
And if listeners are curious and want to find out more about Ticketing Hub or connect with you, where would you recommend they head to?
ticketinghub.com for Ticketing Hub. And for me, you can connect me on LinkedIn, but make sure to send me a message saying that you saw the recording
Excellent.
with Vinay, because I get a lot of people just like poking and asking for connections, and I don't accept them if I don't really know them.
Brilliant. We'll include links to that in the show notes. Carl, thank you for doing this. It's been brilliant.
Vinay, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure. And yeah, I look forward to the results.